To Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Stranger Things Season 4, also known as Stranger Things 4. I will be covering the entire season, Volumes 1 and 2. Therefore, a spoiler warning does apply if you have not seen all the way up through the end of Stranger Things Season 4, Volume 2. Then you will not want to watch this video until which time you have watched all the way up through the end. Otherwise, you shall be spoiled. Okay, so I'll start with my overall thoughts. Now, at the beginning of the year, I did a video for 5 shows I'm excited for in 2022 and 3 shows that I'm not excited for in 2022. And Stranger Things made the list of the 3 shows that I was not excited for. And the main reason for that is, honestly, the post-credits scene of Season 3, where it appeared to me that we were going right back down to the Demogorgon again. And I was like, we're going back to the Demogorgon? They just don't have any story to tell. I used to think that this was a limited series. This should have been a 1-season show. And I was like, they don't have any more story to tell. They're just going to start repeating the same beats over and over. And it's not going to be very good. And I have come here to say I couldn't have been more wrong. They not only had more story to tell, but they had the most compelling and most interesting story to tell to date. And in fact, Season 4 is the best season of Stranger Things to date. And I will get into some more specific details of what they did right, and it has everything to do with the villain and the villain's relationship to the characters, which is the best villain and the best villain to character relationship by far that Stranger Things has ever done. And I'll dive into the details of that in just a minute. So this is the best season of Stranger Things to date. However, and there is a big however, I do continue to view Stranger Things as one of the more overrated shows of all time. It continues to be overrated. Now, how can I say it's overrated when I just said it's the best season of the show? And the reason why it's overrated is because I'm seeing things like Masterpiece, and I saw one video that said that this was the greatest season of television ever produced, ever. And for me, I can tell you right now, this does not make my top 50 as far as all the seasons ever made of television. And in fact, in 2022 alone, I keep a running ranking list of shows as I watch them, and which in the end of the year will turn into my top 10 of the year. As right now, of the shows that I have watched so far in 2022, I've got Stranger Things Season 4 at number 6. And with all the great shows still to come in 2022, it's a very high probability that Stranger Things Season 4 does not even make my top 10 of 2022, never mind of all time. So people treat it like it's this pristine, flawless masterpiece that can do no wrong with godlike abilities that we all need to bow down and worship to, and it isn't even remotely close to that. So when I say it's overrated, that's what I mean. And with Season 4 in particular, the biggest problem that I saw is that it was 13 hours worth of material. 9 episodes, but because they were all super long episodes, 13 hours worth of material, whereas each of the previous 3 seasons were about 8 to 9 hours each. And I would argue that Season 4 also should have been in that 8 to 9 hour range, and you cut out all of the excess fat. There were storylines that could have been cut out altogether, and other storylines that could have been greatly condensed because they really dragged on. You didn't need 13 hours. I think the show was trying to be epic, like Game of Thrones, a la... Yeah, Game of Thrones, the penultimate episodes were known for being epic. Lost back in the day had the epic 2-hour season finales. That's the kind of thing that the show was kind of trying to do. And I say, why? Just tell a good story. Just tell a good story. That's all you need to do. You don't need to be epic. Look at our 2.5-hour finale. Like, you don't have to do that. You really don't. Just tell a good story. And I understand also that Netflix is leaning more toward the Volume 1 and Volume 2 format. Hey, episode 1 through 4, volume 1, episode 5 through 8, volume 2, no problem. You can still do that. And I'll talk in more detail about the things that I think should have been condensed or cut out entirely. In the second half of this video, I want to start with the positive because I don't want to start off by my bitching and moaning. So I'll start by saying why I think this is the best season of Stranger Things. And then I will get into all the things that needed to be cut, which is why this is nowhere close to being the greatest season of television of all time or any nonsense like that. All right, so let me go ahead and dive into what I really liked about the show first. Okay. Actually, before I dive into what really worked for me in season 4, a quick random thing I have to say because I don't know where else to fit it into this video, but I just have to point out that Robin's love interest looks exactly like Molly Ringwald from the 1980s movies that she was in, and I'm here for it. I am all on board for a Molly Ringwald clone, hopefully being in a lesbian relationship in season 5. I had a crush on Molly Ringwald too when I was younger. Anyways, just had to get that in there somewhere. Now let's dive into what I really liked about the season, and I already kind of alluded to the fact that it does have to do with the villain. Now, in the past, all we had gotten from Stranger Things as far as villains is roar, 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 monsters with no personality and no human side at all, no real backstory, no connection to our characters. And Stranger Things fixed that in a spectacular way. Now, first I want to start with the fact that they did, I think, the most effective 80s nostalgia that they've done yet, which is diving into the 80s horror film nostalgia. And I personally do have some nostalgia for that genre of film, even though I don't particularly love horror today. I was really into the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street films in the 80s, and particularly Nightmare on Elm Street. I thought Freddy Krueger was the scariest mother effer I'd ever seen in my life, and it was effectively creepy. And they really channel that Freddy Krueger vibe. And they even gave Robert Englund a cameo in this season, which I really appreciate. I thought that that was classy to give Robert Englund a cameo in a season that is, in some ways, an homage to his famous character, Freddy Krueger. But I view their treatment of the 80s horror film genre in the same way that I view what Star Trek Strange New Worlds, all these things coming out with the word strange in it. You got Doctor Strange as well. Anyways, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, how they updated Star Trek, the original series, but kept that same kind of nostalgia. That's how I feel about what Stranger Things does with the 80s horror film genre, is they keep that nostalgia, but they improve upon it greatly. In fact, Freddy Krueger isn't even remotely near as interesting or complex as a character as Veccna is, or Henry, or One, whatever you want to call him. And I also have to add that I loved how the characters themselves were trying to figure out what to call him. Is he One? Henry? Veccna? Yes. I kind of thought that was really funny because I feel the same way. What do you call this character? Anyways, this character has an interesting backstory that ties into not only our main characters, but a storyline that has been ongoing since season 1. And I'm going to be honest with you, I really never was that into the whole, Hawkins Lab storyline. It seemed like the only purpose of that was just that Eleven had created this rift into the Upside Down. But other than that, a lot of that stuff with Papa, I didn't really care about that character. It just seemed like besides the point. But now they've tied that all together in a meaningful way, and they've actually made Matthew Modine's Papa character really important. And they've made Eleven's time there much more important than I ever thought it had been in the past. And they were able to tie this villain emotionally into Eleven's past. And for me, the best scenes in the entire series, or scene or sequence, I don't know what you want to call it, happened in the Volume 1 finale, Episode 7, where you have 11 finally getting to relive her memories of 1 and Henry, whatever you want to call him, and the massacre at Hawkins Labs, and we get the real truth of what happened there, which is interspliced with Veccna, or whatever you want to call him, showing Nancy his backstory. And I absolutely loved how they kind of blended those two scenes together to the point where it was hard to tell sometimes which was which, but it worked flawlessly. It was absolutely magnificent. And that whole sequence is absolutely the best thing that Stranger Things has ever done. It was fabulous, and I didn't see this coming. I was not expecting this villain to have any meaningful relationship to 11 or any of our characters. I thought it was going to be another rawr villain, which is why I've said Stranger Things is overrated in the past, because it just has which is not that interesting to me. But the way they pulled this off, showing 1's connection to 11, was magnifique. It was so good, and I just wasn't expecting this. And 11 was a character that I thought they couldn't really develop any further, but they managed to do this. And as I just said, they really make Matthew Modine's Papa character important for the first time, and we get a really good, satisfactory end for this character, because he's dead for real this time, and I absolutely thought it was perfect how 11 says goodbye to him, where he's on his deathbed, and he's begging for 11 to understand. Please say that you understand that I did this all for you. And she just says, goodbye, Papa. Yes! That's exactly what he deserved, because he did not do it all for her. He's full of shit. He did it for his own selfish agenda, so fuck that guy. So I was so pleased with the way she said goodbye to him. And then we find out later, she's explained to Veccna, no, Papa was the real monster. So she didn't buy any of that bullshit where he's like, no, please tell me that you understand that I did this all for you. Fuck you, you did not. So yes, I was so happy. I was so satisfied with that. Now, while I'm talking about the things that really worked for the show, 11, I think, is the MVP, but runner-up would have to be Sadie Sink as Max. Now, Max is a character that I've loved since she was first introduced in Season 2. At the time, I thought she was a refreshing new blood in this mix of characters that had been established in Season 1, and I think she has gotten better with each season. Season 4... I mean, give it up for Sadie Sink. Like, she pretty much stole the show. I wonder if Sadie Sink has her phone with her and, like, will just play Running Up the Hill whenever she walks into a room. I think she should. I think she should use that as her theme song. Like, she walks into a room. I would do it if I were her. You should run with that, girl. Anyways. She was really elevated into main character status this season, and she delivered. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. This was the one character I really felt most invested in. I really felt most relatable. And when she does that confession that she wanted Billy to die and then she wanted herself to die, that was very real and honest and true. And I really, really appreciated it, and I had a little tear in my eye when she was doing that because it was so sincere. And then I thought she died, and when I thought she died, well, first I had a little tear in my eye, but then once 11 started like just crying out of control over Max's dead body, I lost it. I completely lost it. Like Niagara Falls, as they say. Like I completely lost it. And I really believe that she was dead. Bravo performance for Sadie Sink in Season 4. Okay, so that's the heart of what I really loved about this season. Now let me get into what could have been better. Now let me try to clean up this mess a little bit. If I could. So 13 hours of material should have been about 8. So where I start is with the entirety of episodes 1 and 2. Cut those out entirely. Okay, so, I mean, there are important things in there, such as Veccna gets his first victim in those 2 hours. Yes, you need things like that. But for the most part, all of that teen drama bullshit needed to go. And actually, I remember thinking something similar of season 3, where it kind of started off with some teen melodrama stuff that I think was unnecessary. This was way, way worse. This was 2.5 hours worth of material. 2.5 hours worth of material that almost entirely did not need to exist. And it was filled with cliched and obnoxious characters and storylines. So we have 2 different obnoxious one-dimensional bullies. I'll start with 11's bully. She was so annoying. So obnoxious. I think the purpose of that storyline was to strengthen the misdirect that they gave us at the start of the season, that 11 had massacred all of these people back in Hawkins' lab. It's like, oh, look at her. She's got a temper control problem. Even when she doesn't have her powers, she brutally hits this girl with a shoe. I didn't need that. I personally bought the massacre. I thought that 11 actually really did do that, and that perhaps that she, learned from that and got better and wouldn't do something like that anymore. But maybe she has this really dark past. And I didn't need the scene with 11 hitting some obnoxious bully with a shoe to strengthen my belief. Now, if you're someone who didn't buy it and you're like, no, they're misdirecting us, there's no way 11 did that, would 11 hitting that chick with the shoe change your mind? No, it would not. So it was completely unnecessary, and not only unnecessary, but absolutely obnoxious. What we should have done with 11's storyline is maybe have a little bit of plate setting as far as what her life is like now that she's moved to California. But by the end of episode 1, she should be down in that lab in the desert. We just jump right into it, because that is a storyline that, another one that really dragged out. They were really trying to stretch it out through those first 9 hours of volume 1, and this is going to be a recurring theme. I'm going to keep saying this. They're trying to stretch this storyline out, and it really could have been condensed. And you start by having this storyline begin by the end of episode 1. That we didn't need all of this needless high school teen drama bullshit with this obnoxious one-dimensional bully character who disappears after episode 2 and is completely inconsequential. Now let's jump over to the Hawkins storyline, where we also get a bunch of teen melodrama bullshit that had nothing to do with anything. And I want to focus on the character of Lewis Sinclair, who is involved in this cliche storyline of the nerd who turns on his friends and wants to be cool when he gets into high school and wants to be with the cool kids and disowns his friends. By episode 3, he was right back to being the nerd and right back to being with his old friends, as if that whole storyline for the first 2 episodes never existed. So with that being the case, why did that storyline exist? I think the low point of the season is that episode 1 ending with Lewis having this dramatic basketball shot interspliced with this scene with Eddie doing the grand, D&D thing with Veccna. And now that was a well put together scene. I'm sure that the writers are very proud of that scene, but there is a saying that I remember from writing class: murder your darlings, which means you may love a scene, you may think it's well written and well done, but if it does not move the story forward, you need to murder it. You need to cut it out of your story. It needs to move the story forward. What does a dramatic climax of a D&D game and a dramatic climax of a basketball game have to do with anything? Nothing. There was way too much time of teen melodrama bullshit that had nothing to do with Veccna, had nothing to do with the Upside Down, had nothing to do with the monsters. All of that bullshit should have been cut out. And if you're going to have Lewis just end up being a nerd anyways, just start him out that way. You did not need this cliche, overused storyline of the teen disowning his friends to go with the cool kids. Now, as for those cool kids, those basketball dudes, I think the main guy was named Jason. I'm going to make the case that they did not need to exist. Not only did you not need the storyline with Lewis, going to the cool kids, you didn't even need the cool kids. What was their function in the story? So, one, you have, I think Jason was his name, right? He gets the town all worked up about the Hellfire Club and how they're a satanic cult, which is dumb. This is so stupid. It's very clearly a D&D club, and I can see that maybe some fringe idiots would think that the D&D club is a satanic club. There are people who believe things like that, but getting the whole town in, that was so stupid, and it did nothing to move the story forward. And the end, when you get into the finale, the purpose of this character's existence is that he adds more tension to the finale, another layer of tension to the finale. Now, imagine if you had taken that out. Let's say you just simply have Lewis watching over Max's body the same way that you have Mike watching over Eleven's body, and that's all that he does. Let's say that we do that. What have we lost? Are we going to sit there and go, oh, all we have left is Eddie and Dustin being chased by all of these bad creatures? We have Nancy, Steve, and Robin going through that house and being attacked by all of these like vines and stuff. You have 11 first trying to find her way through Max's memories to get to one, and then having a big confrontation with one. You have Max trying to fight off one. You have Hopper fighting off the Demogorgons in Russia. All of that stuff. That's enough tension. That's plenty of tension. You didn't need to have this stupid storyline with a moronic basketball player trying to shoot Lewis with a gun. And also, it's very earthbound, and I'll talk about that in another storyline too. It felt out of place. It was too earthbound. It had nothing to do with the supernatural. And you didn't need it to add tension. If that storyline did not exist, nobody would feel like anything was missing. No one would feel like, well, I just don't think there was enough tension at the end of this finale. Nobody would say that. You would not miss it at all. Did not belong there. The whole thing. Cut it out, cut those characters out. Also, that character was dumb, obnoxious, and annoying. It should not have been there, and it drove me crazy. And I would say, actually, this character's existence is the worst thing about Stranger Things Season 4. So now I'm going to talk about some of the storylines that could have and should have been condensed. And I'll start with that Russian storyline. And I just mentioned a storyline being a little too earthbound. We don't get any kind of monster or anything related to the Upside Down until episode 7, which was about into hour 9 of this 13-hour season. It's the first time this storyline ever delves into the supernatural. Up until that point, it's a cliche prison break storyline that drags on for way too long. And yes, Murray was really fun in this season. He added some comic relief. His interactions with the Russian helicopter dude, peanut butter guy, were fun. So I'm not saying you cut all of that out entirely, but you greatly condense it, and you introduce the supernatural element by the end of episode 1. You have those particles. That's kind of the main reason for the existence of the storyline, is those particles. And they don't get introduced, I don't think, until volume 2. That should have been an ominous, ever-looming presence by the end of episode 1, and something like, ooh, this mystery, what are these particles, what is happening? And you have Demogorgons popping up all throughout, so that you have a deeper connection to the main storyline. As it was, it felt like a disconnected, earthbound, cliche storyline about a prison break that dragged on for too long, and I was bored with it. Every time it came up on the screen, I was like, oh, this storyline again. I'd roll my eyes and like wait for them to get past this to get to the good stuff. Way too much of that. That should have been greatly condensed. And if you follow my idea of a format, which is volume 1 is the first 4 episodes, with episode 4 basically being the equivalent of episode 7, and where you have that big climax. of the scene that I said I loved earlier on. And then I think Volume 2 could largely remain unchanged other than taking out the stupid basketball dude. If you do it that way, then you only really have 4 episodes, 4 hours worth of that storyline, and you just get to the point quicker, and you get to the supernatural part quicker. Now, I also want to talk about the storyline with Mike. What happened to Mike? Like, he was one of the main protagonists in season 1. And in season 4, he does a whole lot of nothing through the first 8 fucking hours of the show. He does a whole lot of nothing, and that goes true for the characters who are with him in his scenes. Jonathan, Will, and the stoner dude. The stoner dude was a bit of a silly character, but he was fine. He was kind of funny at times. I kind of liked him. So those characters, the purpose of them was to save 11 in episode 7. And then for Mike to give the big pep speech, the pep talk at the end. It was really all they do. Up until that is a whole lot of nothing. Yes, we bring in a Susie cameo. Yay, I didn't need it. Especially since she's disconnected from Dustin. The whole purpose of her was to be Dustin's secret girlfriend. And doesn't even share the scene with him. She doesn't need to be there. They do a whole lot of absolutely nothing through 8 hours of television dragging. So again, if this was, if episode 7 is episode 4, then it's only 3 hours worth of material in which that is going on. And yes, you can still have them going and looking for 11. That's fine, but it just dragged on. It was a lot of nothing dragging on for a long time, and it was disappointing for a character like Mike, who in the past had been pretty important. All right, so I think that's enough of my bitching and moaning about the length of this season. Let me go ahead now, before my video becomes too long, and give my rating out of 10. And now is the part of the video where I give my rating out of 10, with 1 being the lowest possible score and 10 being the highest possible score. My rating for Stranger Things 4 is an 8. So, the best season of Stranger Things, the best villain that they've had. They really surprised me with how well they portrayed this villain and how well they made the connection between the villain and our main characters, particularly Eleven and Max, both of whom had outstanding seasons. A really excellent example of storytelling, much better than I ever imagined they would do. However, this is not a 10 out of 10, you may notice. This is not a masterpiece. It would be a 10 out of 10 and would be in the conversation, most likely, for my favorite show of 2022 if it had only been about 8 hours long instead of 13, and I already kind of went through all of the obnoxious, unnecessary storyline that should have been cut out or condensed. So, with all of that, still an 8, still a highly enjoyable season. Alright, that does it for my review for Stranger Things Season 4. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. Please check out all my reviews on Star Trek, Star Wars, and the MCU and everything else that I do, as well as monthly transgender issue videos. Check out all of that stuff. Subscribe, hit the like buttons, and I will see you very soon.